Thank you so much for coming back to join us. People from the southern part of the world, from Africa and so on, are trying to run from their country. And we thought it was just the war, but what was pushing the war? It was lack of economic impetus, right? Lack of economic infrastructure. Well, a lot of it was also caused by decades of drought. So people have no money, no water. They have no means to keep the land going, right? They have no infrastructure, economic infrastructure to take the natural resources out of the land to create sustainable economies. So people started migrating, and they're moving to the northern parts of the world because it's almost as if you can feel that those areas where they live is heating up, and it's getting warmer and warmer. The planet is getting warmer and warmer, and a lot of it is just caused by what? You're not going to believe it. Our modern lifestyle, right? When we turn our air conditioners on, when we drive our cars, right? And when we turn our furnaces on to keep our homes warm, it's emitting gases that go up in the atmosphere. And that is what is causing the climate, the planet to warm up. In causing the planets to warm up, we who live in the northern hemisphere are faring better because we cool down. So at certain times of the year, cyclically, we develop and achieve different seasons that rotate between spring, summer, fall, autumn, and winter. Well, in other parts of the world, it's summer all the time. And we used to think it was idyllic because, you could just live in a constant summer phase. Well, sucks to be us, but those folks are not living the dream because they're deprived. They live in depraved circumstances. They don't have water. They don't have access to running water. They don't have access to clean air because in some of those places they practice what is called slash and burn agriculture, where they chop down trees and so on to create fuel. You know what it is, right? And that destroys the ecosystem. You uproot the trees, so the soil has nothing to hold on to. So if you don't have trees, you're not going to have precipitation. You're not going to have rain. And they engage in tribal wars. Oh, I call it tribal war. It's tribal wars because it's ridiculous and stupid. You're fighting over something that probably happened 100 years ago, and you're fighting over something that is not even significant or relevant. You're all in poverty, and you need to figure out how to move together as a group, and instead you're fighting. Tribal warfare. And so these places have been in wars for decades. People can't live there anymore. So people start moving forward, right? And that is what is driving a lot of that migratory patterns that they're moving to the northern hemisphere. And eventually over time, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they will integrate, right? It takes a while. Integration is not quick. Integration is something that takes a while, and then they will integrate and blend in. But here in America, we have our own situation. We are looking at something happening in California, wildfires that are completely out of control, that are having real-time impacts on people's lives. People don't know what to do. People don't have any means of recovery. Even if the government were going to give you $500, what can that do to your life? How is that going to start life? When you live in an area that the town is completely burnt out, so your job is gone. The jobs are gone. So the only people who can afford to return to those places are people who are wealthy. The insurance companies make a big check. They can go back and build a house and start life over again, building more fire-resistant things. Which brings me to the next point. Why do we build houses that are not fire-resistant when you live in a fire zone? In California, for instance, in Sonoma County, that's the wine country. Seriously? Like seriously. And I know that things happen and so on, but like seriously, it's very expensive to live there. And I imagine now there's going to be a reverse kind of migration of people who are going to go back home because luckily you probably had mom and dad or grandma and grandpa or an aunt and uncle whom you have no choice but to go back to wherever you came from to live again, to start again. because after losing your job, you just didn't have anywhere to stay. It was either that or be homeless. So after these wildfires, how many people do you think are going to be homeless? People literally just took what they could, pack it in a car, and drove for their lives. A lot of people woke up the next morning and they started thinking, man, if this is going to happen, I have just this much. How much is the insurance company going to give me? I'm out of here. I'm going to go start life in Montana, Wyoming, where all I have to worry about are beers in the backyard and stuff like that. Move to Colorado or something. People are going to move away from California because it's getting dangerous to live there. It is absolutely getting dangerous. Dangerous in the sense that if you're not wealthy, you can't live in California. That's what it is turning out to be. You have to be wealthy to live there, especially in Southern California. Now, if you go to other parts of California, Sacramento is beautiful. I like it. It's nice and green and, and while Southern California has appealing weather, you gotta be wealthy to live there. So people might either move further north or move out of the state entirely. And that says a lot. But what kind of technology, what can we do to stop wildfires? I am not sure. I don't have the answer to that. I'm trying to figure it out because I'm trying to understand what causes them in the first place. Because I'm looking at the scenery and I'm like, why in 20 years you've not learned to plant green trees? You know what I mean? Why haven't you planted trees that is going to create precipitation and attract and cause rain to happen? If you don't have trees, you're not going to get any rain. You need trees to encourage the root to build into the roots that is going to emit photosynthesis. Anybody remembers that? So that you can have precipitation fall. So when the winds from the ocean interact with the trees on the land, you're going to have some kind of effect. Why are we not building trees in California? Did we just want to look at the bare mountains and not think that something was going to happen? I don't know. And I know in some areas of California, they encourage a certain amount of shrubbery to be on the ground as it depletes it reduces the ability to, the chances that you'll have wildfires. I'm tired. My brain is running 100 miles a minute. I have another appointment today. I have to go to Flint in a few hours, in just a few. And then I have another event back here in Metro Detroit tonight. So, but do you see what I'm saying? So when you think about it, it makes you think, and it's making you stop and wonder, what on earth is going on? Because why is it that we can't seem to have a handle on these wildfires with all the technology that we supposedly have? Why can't we stop wildfires? What is it that we can't stop wildfires? Why? I know that people start fires, and you're all looking at me like, Harriet, don't act like you don't know. People do start fires, but the condition had to exist for the fire to ignite, right? So somebody can, throw out a cigarette butt, but if the dry ground and the dry brush is not there, then the fire won't start. Why do we continue to have wildfires? Is it that people just there are so many houses, people just want to live on the hillside and enjoy the mountain view, enjoy the view of the ocean? But you gotta have soil, and you gotta have trees to hold the soil in place. And if you have trees, then you're gonna have precipitation, so you'll have rain. Years ago, I remember there had been talk about using seawater. I think they still do that in some parts of California, especially farmers, right? That's the desalination process, where the salt is extracted from the seawater, so they're able to use it for farming and watering and so on. And I'm like, you have that big great ocean out there and you all haven't thought about piping the water in? Years ago, they wanted to build a pipeline from the Great Lakes to California. I'm like, no, you don't. We're not going to sanction that. Then you drain our lakes, and then we have a drought, and then we don't have any water to sustain ourselves because you drain our water. Hell to the no. No, go plant some trees over there. Dig out the ground and let the water start falling in there until it becomes a lake, and see how quickly it will change your ecosystem. A lot of it has to do with our own attitudes towards preservation. We spend so much time preserving wildlife, we forgot to preserve the ground for human life. Sometimes you look at the preservation of animals, but you have to put it within context. The context is that anything that is going to escape human life has to be re-examined. If it's going to proliferate more than human life, you have to rethink that. And so they went to great lengths to talk about we have to preserve the whales in the sea. Well, the whales were never going anywhere, if you really thought about it. Nobody thought about preserving the land so that the land could be tenable for human life. Nobody thought about the humans who would inhabit the land and stay in their houses. Can you believe what it must be like to be awakened by fire sirens and to be told you had to put everything you own in this little bag and run for your life? And when you look back, all you can see is your home is burning. Imagine what it must be like for people to be so traumatized, to drive down the 405 and have to drive through fires on the right, fires on the left, fire in the median. I drove through a wildfire in Orlando, Florida, from interstate, just off I-95 in Daytona Beach, through Interstate 4 through to Orlando. And I have never forgotten what that felt like. I can just imagine what those people felt like. And so I say to all of us, it's time for us to re-examine what this is causing. It is highlighting this that we never thought about. What happens to people who don't have $1 million, who could not afford to pay their insurance? What happens to all those seniors who retired and moved to California and lost their homes, lost their retirement savings because you tried to live? What happens to all those folks? It has created a wealth gap. And eventually California is going to be a land just for the rich. And the rest of the folks will just have to take a sideline and go live in Washington State or Oregon somewhere. Right? Right? Maybe they'll have to build greater freeways, right? And the bullet train like the one they have in Tokyo. So you can live in Oregon but work in California. They take the bullet train back home, and instead of it taking you a whole entire 12 hours or 14 or 16 hours, it takes you 2 hours to get there. I don't know if that's where it's going, but it is significant. People in California are paying the price in Southern California. Send up a prayer for those folks. And if you know someone, if you are related to someone who is caught up in that wildfire, extend your home to them and tell them maybe it's time you rethink this. Because guess what? Nothing is going to change significantly in the next 3 years. So there's going to be another wildfire next year, and one the year after that, and the year after that. You might as well just go back and start all over again. It is what it is, starting over. All of us have been there. We've all been there, right? I'm going to share the link to the New York Times article. Read it. It is quite the thing. And for those of us who live in these areas, I send prayers out for everybody. Just take care of yourselves, folks. Take care of yourselves. It's going to be okay. I promise you, it's going to be okay. You may just have to make some hard, tough decisions about starting over, but it's going to be okay, right? My name is Harriet Cammock. Thank you so much for joining us on Down to Earth. Make sure you come back and join me again. In the meantime, go subscribe to our podcast. Hey, y'all, download and subscribe to my podcast, huh? Go listen to the other stuff we talk about. I know there's some shows that you haven't heard and you haven't listened to. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. They sent me another one, Spreaker, Overcast, Radio Public. Is it Radio Public? Radio Public. There are 8 platforms. So download and subscribe to our podcast and listen to us. Continue to support us. We're a listener-supported event. So when you listen to us, we invite you to go to my page and you can make a donation to keep us on the air. We're a listener-supported program. Thank you so much, everybody. It's my pleasure. Wish me well. Got some stuff to do today. We're going to go see the great city of Flint. How about that? Flint, Michigan. We're going up there in just a few minutes. Thank you so much, everybody. Be blessed.